is so easy.
Yeah,
It's really good. Yeah, I mean, I read a lot of comics every month, and I also try to, mostly when I read for pleasure, though, it's not comics, to be honest, because from 7 in the morning till 9 at night, it's usually, my whole life is about making comics, so when I sit down for a couple hours to relax, it's kind of the last thing I want to look at. But I do read, I'll take usually one weekend out of each month and just kind of catch up and read a lot of stuff. And,
Is there anything in particular?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff I read, I read some superhero stuff, and I read a lot of stuff that Image is putting out, like Manhattan Project, Saga, Southern Bastards, and I'm forgetting everything now that I read, but I'm trying to think of the last graphic novels I read. The Gillian Tamaki and Rico Tamaki graphic novel this one summer was really brilliant, and I tried to read diverse as much different kind of comics as I can, European stuff, alternative stuff, and mainstream stuff, and there's good stuff being done in all those different sort of avenues, and bad stuff being done in all those as well, and just, I think it's good to keep up on as much as you can.
I look at the pictures, really. So right now I really like Greg Capullo. He's pretty great on Batman.
I always like that as an artist. I always thought that everyone else read comics for the pictures, but realizing that it's not
Yeah,
the case.
I know, it's definitely true. But yeah, all the comics that I read, I don't actually read it, I look at the pictures. So I just saw an Image comic that I thought looked incredible by an artist who was totally new for me. I think it's Greg Tocini.
Yeah, he's great.
Unbelievable. I couldn't believe it, And this is, again, another place where it's an artist that's so good that I can't believe how good it is. And
What do you
it's
mean
totally
by you can't believe? What about it is unbelievable?
He just has such a fluidity to his figures, and they're so true looking, but they're clearly not photo referenced. There's a look to that you can see, and his hands are incredible. He draws beautiful, beautiful women, just beautiful stuff. So, and I can always tell when somebody's work, when it really appeals to me, I know that they are better than I am, which is really frustrating. So it's always a bittersweet feeling. I love it when I can find an artist that I really love. I've got a long list, but I know that, I have that much more work to do. It
I
keeps
felt
me
that way with
motivated.
this one summer.
Beautiful.
That's just like, wow. Too good.
Yeah, there's no way in comics you can be like Martin Amis, who's like, I do not read my contemporaries, and I definitely do not read my contemporaries younger. There's just no way you could go through this life and not check out and try to check out what's going on. Just amazing.
All right. I wonder if, we've sort of touched on this, but how has the field of comics changed over the course of your careers? I mean, the industry, the kinds of stories being told, anything. How do you think it's changed?
Well, I'm the oldest guy here probably by a long shot, so yeah, I guess you guys were talking already about you can sell comics like in bookstores or anything. Like I'd go to like they'd just be bookstores like, no, what are you talking about? You can't sell this. And now comics are seen as a kind of savior of literacy.
Right, yeah.
So that's good. Stuff's so much more diverse now than it was when I was 10 or 11 years old. There was the three really good comics were Mouse, Dark Knight Returns, and Watchmen. Those were like the ones that bookstores would take and stuff. And now you go into a bookstore and it's like, there's just so much good stuff. You wanted to get into comics now. There's such a great, deep bench of amazing.
You can buy his book at HMV.
Yeah, there's just so much good stuff, and you're even seeing like that diversity that's kind of spread through indie comics now, spreading into Marvel and DC, where they're the styles of art that they're allowing on their superhero comics and stuff are getting more and more diverse.
Yeah, when I saw that Scotty Lou was going to be doing one of the Marvel titles, that style would never have been part of it.
You're seeing them, I think Marvel's even having some surprise hits like Squirrel Girl and Howard the Duck, where they're kind of not house style, and they're really popular because there's a craving for.
That's because the readership's gotten, it's not just geeky guys like we were when we were kids. You know, there's way more illustrated comics now than there were when we were kids.
You see that at conventions now, especially just the last couple of years. You really, you know who your audience is from going to conventions, and it's a lot more young kids than were ever there before, a lot more women. It's really
Yeah,
changed.
it's so much, the readership's so much more diverse than as a result now that, yeah, the comics are reflecting that, you know.
Yeah.
That's a really positive thing.
Yeah, it's something that we've been trying for so many years unsuccessfully, and it's finally, I think it's the movies that it made that possible, because, you know, comics seem a little geeky and, you know, a little childish until you watch the movie and you get immersed in it, and it's something that really affects you, and, you know, I think that's really brought in everybody, so it's been amazing for us. If there's a downside for me, because I'm a pessimist, it's just that it used to be that we would do comics and nobody really paid attention, we could get away with just about anything, and now I really feel like we have much more of an obligation to a big icon, you know, and it can be a little bit stifling, and I watch what I say much more closely than I once did, because, you know, social
Going
media
back at
really...
Hergé's stuff, right, and saying, you know, we can't have this, like, this depiction of Native people or Black people, like the way Hergé just, you know, he just, like, okay, that's comics done in the 30s or whatever, but now the libraries are taking out Hergé, right?
Mark Twain effect.
Yeah.
I just saw a Dr. Seuss picture that was
Yeah.
pretty stunning, that people are bringing up right now.
That's Tintin, by the way.
David and Kagan, you also do newspaper and magazine illustration, and I wondered if you could comment on that type of comics work and maybe some of the challenges of working in those modes.
Well, one of the great things about it is it's over much faster than a big comic book, because it's kind of a quick thing. Currently, right now, I'm doing a comic for Maclean's about the Mike Duffy trial, which is, I'm not sure if they're publishing it in the magazine every week, but definitely on the website. And so I'm just working with the writer who's covering the trial. But I think, like I said before, it's great to see magazines using this form of storytelling as an option. And yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah, you're talking to the wrong guy, because I used to do stuff like him, or be in the National Post and stuff, but now, like, I've gone from the National Post, like a circulation 80,000 or something, to like Mine Shaft, which is like a circulation of 1,000. And,
Well, I don't know if posters anymore.
yeah, so I've gone like just to more like totally gallery or little artsy things like Tattle Creek or Geist magazine.
What was it like when you were working for the
When I was working for the Post and Conrad Black owned it, like they flew me out to Saskatchewan to illustrate a W.P. Kinsella story, and it put me up, I took over the library there, and had this kid scanning my work for me and stuff. It was great, you know, but those days are gone.
Yeah. I remember the first anniversary party was at the Royal Ontario Museum, and then the last few have been at a dive pub in projects.
Yeah, it's hard in newspapers, right? But yeah, there's certain freedom to that. But you know, it's funny though. Like you look at Thomas Nast, you know, from the 1860s, and he made people so annoyed. You know, like stop those damn pictures. New York City politicians would say, you know, just people can't read, but they can see pictures. And now there's so many ways to annoy people, right? This guy's posting as we speak right now, blogs, just inflaming, you know, throwing fire onto, gasoline onto the fire. But what really makes people still mad is comics, Charlie Hebdo or the Danish cartoonists. That's something that really people just, it's like, there's so many ways of being annoying still, but comics are still number one, right?
Because you can just digest it immediately, a picture, and just be offended very quickly.
And maybe it's something about our lifestyles too, right? Like there'll never be an ISIS New York Times, right? Print edition, right? But you know, here we are doing stuff with our paper boys and stuff, and maybe this is our Enigma machine, like our our paper, our distribution. You don't know everything by searching things on the internet, you know, and we have this still have this, you know, way of communicating on paper. It's kind of special, these comic book conventions and stuff, and meeting people face to face, you know, it's like you don't get everything from the screen, right? And that might be a way of, I'm sorry, my friend Patrick Vincent, he was killed by a guy who's inspired by all the turmoil that's going on. He was run down by a car last October wearing his uniform. Right? I've been thinking about him a lot. I started my career with him and worked with him for 2 years, right, in the military. And, you know, it's just something that really affected me because he's such a nice guy. So, sorry.
I wanted to ask you about your sketchbooks. And at one point in this exhibit, Suzanne and I had talked about sketchbooks and maybe bringing them in, and then decided against it for a variety of reasons. But I wanted to ask what the relationship is between your sketchbooks and your finished work. How do you use your sketchbook? Are they just for you? Is it a place you try out ideas? What do you do with your sketchbooks, Dave?
It's a nag for me. It's like, okay, you've done everything today. Have you drawn in your sketchbook? You know, this is another thing Crum was bugging me about when I was a teenager. He's like, you know, draw in your sketchbook every day. Keep it up like a discipline, right? Draw from life, draw from your head. And so now my son James is starting to draw in his sketchbook with ink, and yeah, it's like it can be a. I only lost one sketchbook, and that was about 4 years ago. And this is really weird. Anybody see the movie The Kingsman? You know, like the Secret Service, right? So I was in London, and I was drawing like this police headquarters, and I was like up really close, and I was drawing my sketchbook, and I didn't think about it. And then I realized, oh man, London, England has like closed circuit TV everywhere, right? So then we went to Heathrow. And I saw this young guy in a suit and stuff, and he was looking at me all the time, right? And my sketchbook's gone, right? You know, is that weird or what? So that's my sketchbook story.
This looks like an ideal sketchbook. This is,
Bought this after my one was stolen.
it looks like what you think an artist's sketchbook should look like. Lots of you know, notes and things like that. And I used to keep a sketchbook like that. I find I still draw for leisure and everything like that, but I just don't have quite the same amount of time I used to. But, and also you kind of have this vision of it. This could be a brilliant book filled with great drawings, and then, you know, page one, you blow it, and then it's actually kind of nice. Then you go, okay, well, it doesn't matter if I mess up for the rest of the book, and you can have lots of false starts. I think it doesn't have to be, I feel like now we feel like I want to at least get something that I can put on my blog and post and tweet and everything like that. So it's a real letdown if you don't do something good. But a sketchbook can be just for you and just for practice. You don't have to show anybody. There was an artist I know who had a sketchbook, and everything in it was drawn on a piece of typewriter paper and pasted in so that only the good stuff made it into a sketchbook. Not quite the purpose of it.
It's like the book of Flowers for Arguland, and he gets to be brilliant, and then he wants to destroy his own work.
Yeah.
What's the name of that book where the guy gets his intelligence goes?
Flowers for Alfred.
Yeah, Flowers for
Yeah, I wish I could keep a sketchbook, but I just don't have time anymore. But I know it's a really important thing to do, and it's a really good space to experiment in.
Do you both,
But I just don't have time.
do you have a place, book you do character studies, like to work out characters for what you're working on?
Yeah, you did lots of sketches going up north, right?
Mhm.
Up James Bay.
Not as much as I should have.
A lot of
I
times-
really, I used to have like just drawing pads and like rough
Oh, okay.
sheet paper.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like when I get a nice sketchbook, there's too much pressure for it to be good. So
Okay.
if it's just on a pad of paper that you can toss away.
So you have a lot on page one.
Do you keep those, or do they just go?
Sometimes if it's
Yeah.
good, but no, usually, no,
Yeah.
just like process.
Just trying to work ideas out?
Yeah, I don't think I would ever share sketchbooks.
Yeah.
You know, it's not really, it's never anything that's meant for, the comic is what
Right.
finished comics are what I want to share with people, not the process. It's fine.
I never sketch, really, I just don't have time, but I do my layouts and character designs and that kind of stuff. Sometimes in a book, I've got a book, but half the time I can't find it, or it's just on paper or whatever, and I never intend for that. My layouts are garbage, you can't tell what they are. But I find that stuff ends up going in print because they do like a collection, and then they want stuff in the back, so it seems like it's a little more special, and they end up taking the garbage stuff. I just did some Wonder Woman costume designs, and I find I spent so long on the drawing that the costume, it doesn't really work. So at this time I decided to just hack them out as quick as I could, just come up with a bunch of different ideas. I figured nobody will ever see it anyway, and they put it on a cover, like a whole bunch of the different, and they're terrible, like embarrassing, but yeah. But I never sketch, I don't have time.
Yeah, I did that for Shakespeare once. I sent in a rough sketch, and then all of a sudden I turn around and it's printed as a variant cover, and I was mortified because it was like meant for their eyes only. Anyway.
You never know, people will like it.
I'm sure we're all very curious to know what you're working on now.
But you are, yeah, but.
Curiosity may not be satisfied, but I thought I'd
No.
ask anyway.
My wife's grandfather just passed away, and his name is Ronald Hamilton. He's 97 years old, and he was a writer, and he'd always say, why would you tell somebody what you're working on, and you don't have the impetus to finish it, right?
Yeah,
So,
true.
so in memory of Ronald Hamilton.
Yeah, I'm working on a number of things. I got stuff that I'm writing for right now. I'm writing a book called Descender for Image Comics that Dustin Wynn is painting. What else am I working on? I'm writing Hawkeye for Marvel, some other stuff for Marvel that hasn't been announced. And then I just finished a graphic novel. Some of the pages are on display in the show that called Roughneck that'll come out next spring, I imagine, from Simon & Schuster. It's sort of, Dave alluded to, I spent some time in the James Bay area on a couple of the First Nation reserves, and it's kind of a story about some of the people I met, and a lot of it's just fictionalized stuff as well. So that'll come out next year, and I'm just about to start drawing a new graphic novel that Scott Snyder's writing for Image Comics. Hopefully we'll be done for the end of this year. So pretty busy.
And I'm working on my first monthly book for Image with author Chip Zdarsky, and it's called Kaptara. It's a science fiction fantasy kind of Masters of the Universe.
What about, there's a few pages out here for Conquest of Mexico.
Yeah.
Where are you at?
Well, I'll give Dave's answer for that. It's something I've definitely been thinking about every waking moment for years and years. It hasn't gone away, so it's going to happen, but it's just being pushed back a little bit. Yeah. But
Hey, they're asking, what are you working on now? So it's up to you.
Right now I'm drawing Wonder Woman. My wife is writing it, so it's pretty collaborative, which is great. I haven't worked that way since I was at Image back, a long, long time ago. So I get a really loose plot, like a page and a half, a couple pages long at most, and I can go in and do all the storytelling, which is really nice. So I'm enjoying it a lot.
Are you open to other questions from the
Yeah, I
audience?
was just about to. We have a bit of time, so are there some questions from the audience?
There are a lot of men up there, and I'm just wondering about how is, you were talking about the women audience. What about the women making comics, talking about comics, writing about comics? What's happening with gender? And I was just at Rogue's Gallery, and there was an increased presence of comic books and books, graphic novels directed at women and about women. So I'm just wondering if you have any
Yeah, I think it goes back to what I was saying, how the audience is becoming so much more diverse, and there's more and more women reading comics, and as a result, there's more and more women making them as well. And, yeah, I mean, I don't know what we can say about it, because we're all dudes. So. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of fantastic female writers and
I
artists.
threw some names to check out. Gillian Tamaki, of course, and Eleanor Davis is one of my favorites.
Can you throw titles with those authors?
Gillian Tamaki's is called This One Summer.
That's with her cousin,
Yeah, it's probably
Mariko.
maybe the
and
best
then-
graphic novel that came out last year, for sure.
And she has a new one called Super Mutant Magic Academy as well.
Right? And Eleanor Davis is called
How to Be
How to
Happy.
Be Happy. Kate Beaton is getting a lot of traction, and she does comic strip format, humor stuff. Hark a Vagrant, I think is.
Hard to read. And the woman who was on the panel with you, Melody Bajot,
Yeah, I wasn't familiar with her. But,
she is from France and has a just translated graphic novel called Exquisite Corpse. It's quite good.
One of the best books I've read this year was Linda Berry's Syllabus.
Linda Berry,
Phenomenal.
And
Phenomenal.
incredible.
She was, she still is teaching comics at the University of Wisconsin, and just getting people, just like people in this room, maybe who don't draw much, but like, here, draw Batman, draw a car and stuff, and it's just so cool to see what happens.
She's fabulous. And someone mentioned reading Saga. The Fiona Staples does the art.
She's awesome.
Phenomenal art.
I'm doing a book for Image in this first of September called Plutona, and the artist is a woman, a friend of mine named Emmy Lennox, and the colorist is a woman from Ireland called Jodie Boyers.
does she have like an animation kind of style?
Yeah,
or
it's
like
very
manga, maybe?
cutesy, cartoon stuff.
But it's
Story is-
probably definitely tough, right? Like, Julie Doucette still tells the story of how when she was starting out, this guy knocked on her door, this other cartoonist in Montreal, and said, give it up, it's not going to work out, stop what you're doing, you're not doing it right. It's like she was doing something so visionary and different, but this guy said, forget it, don't do it.
Julie Doucette, who was talking about at the Drawn and Quarterly 25th anniversary celebration, all of the cartoonists said Julie Doucette's New York Diaries changed everything when it came out, in terms of what was possible in the media. So there's tons of great female cartoonists. In the back?
In the 60s and 70s, the pop artists used comic images as their source material. Have any of you had other artists incorporate your images into their work, and how do you feel about that?
Well, I think the whole point of that was to show comics were completely banal, like a Campbell soup can, and so putting them in a gallery at a huge size is like a parody, essentially. So I wouldn't really consider any of that work a compliment, personally.
But now they're doing it with people's Instagram photos and putting
Yeah.
those in the gallery. You seen that?
$90,000.
So, same shtick.
Yeah.
No, but
Well, just, that happened at the National Gallery. I was telling you, it's just like, you feel like, wow, that's really out of context, and it's kind of shocking.
Actually, pop art was trying to equate popular images with high art. They weren't using it as parody. They were using it as a compliment.
Well, my dad's sitting next to you there.
I know.
He's friends with, it's not like Eduardo Palazzi, he's like, what you were there, was he doing it out of love, taking comics? or
Yes,
was
out of great respect.
Yeah,
I think if it was out of great respect, they should have given the money to the artist that did the original image.
yeah, so, that's Marley, because she was Eduardo Palazzi was one of the first pop artists, and Marley was his assistant. And other cartoonists still ask me, wow, you knew Eduardo Palazzi? Gary Panther was like, wow, I saw a letter from Eduardo Palazzi in your comics.
I was just wondering if some of the old traditional superheroes had a universal aspect to them, and what I mean by that is, let's say a classic like Batman, and if you translate it into Indian or Chinese, would it be received as well there as it would be in North America?
Batman's there's been really popular Batman manga in Japan and
Mhm.
India as well. It's been,
Yeah.
So they
Pretty
would
universal
relate,
thing.
because you know, because
Oh, yeah.
some of their, let's say, religious views and things might be a little different, but I just wonder if their cultural mores would be such that they would embrace it as much as we
I
do.
think almost every culture has some sort of,
So I was just in China, and there's a huge show there, and it's their first show. It was unbelievable turnout. That was a couple weeks ago, and
Yeah.
I mean, we've been going to Europe now for years. But yeah, it's all around the world now.
I was just gonna say, I think almost every culture has some sort of big mythological aspect that's just good
Yeah.
versus evil.
I
And
see.
really it's
Not Russia, right? I had a roommate from Russia, and he's always going back and forth to Russia. It's like, Dostoevsky and Tolstoy from Russia, how about comics? He's like, no, we don't do comics. You know comics in Russia?
Yeah, I just got my first Descenders being translated in Russian. That's the first time I've ever had that, so there must be a small growing comics community now or something.
There's a hand in the back.
When you transition from being someone that draws to being an artist?
I get paid for it.
That's what
I
you're
guess
selling.
my question is copying other artists' work and then trans into your own style.
I don't know, for me, there was that one project where I finally found my voice, my own voice, and my own things I wanted to write about and stuff, instead of just trying to replicate things I admired that other people were doing. And so I can pinpoint it to like sort of one moment or one project, but I think it's probably different for everybody.
Yeah, I still look at artists and try to replicate what they do. It's, it's an important way for me to grow, so I've never outgrown that.
Yeah, I don't know what I mean being on stage with you guys. I kind of don't, it's like,
We
these
don't
guys
either,
are
do we?
different, like I can't draw like these guys, and it's like a struggle. Yeah. So I'll let you know when I get there.
As you're in the industry, I'm hoping you can answer this question. It relates to the films on the various comic characters and teams that have come out in the last 15 or 20 years or so. As a product of the 60s, I felt that they really got it for my imagination. The storytelling combined with the art is something that's been with me since I'm a little boy. I can still think back to May of 1965. I know where I was on a certain Saturday, and I think there's maybe other people in the audience that know exactly what I'm trying to say. But that storytelling combined with the art, we grew with the characters. We've always been one with them, if you can understand what I'm saying. The movies today, it's a wide range of people that are going now. When my son and I go to the film, we'll see some people in my age group, product of the 60s, very young kids. At least for me personally, I don't really, the first few movies I went passionately because of my fanatical love for those characters and the storytelling and the art. But now, I'm really, me personally, I'm not so happy with the work that's coming out. It's not what does something for me. I hope you can comment on this as artists and people in the industry. How do you see this going?
Just, from a practical standpoint, I love that they're making the movies that are doing so well, because it means that we get to keep doing what we're doing. Publishing is suffering everywhere.
Oh.
And our sales are not huge. They're better than they were a couple of years ago even. Like, I feel like we're fairly healthy, and I think we really owe it to the movies and the exposure that's given us. So I'm so grateful. And personally, I'm a huge fan of all. I love them all, really, even the bad ones. So, yeah, tough for me to say. There's a real disconnect for me, though, from the movies to the comics. I don't see them as the same thing at all.
Yeah, I just love comics. I don't really care for the films all that much, but it is good. It's healthy. It helps us, commercially. But I feel there was a period when the first couple, like the first couple of Batman or Iron Man movies or whatever came out a few years ago, where it was really kind of novel to see these things we read when we were kids come to life on the screen. But I feel like everyone's now desensitized to that, and they have to keep. Now, like the new Avengers movie, it's just like they're just throwing more and more stuff into them. They're getting so bloated because they're trying to up their game each time. because that sort of novelty of seeing something come to life, like Iron Man flying around, it's kind of, we're all desensitized to that. I feel like it's kind of reaching a breaking point where I think the new Avengers film and stuff that the DC has planned with the Batman and Superman movie and stuff, I feel like it's kind of the end, I think, of it in a lot of ways, but I don't know, who knows?
Yeah, I hope you're not right, but
I think it'll be the same thing that happens in everything where they'll use up all the big superhero stuff and then they'll start adapting
like Ant-Man.
more of the interesting, no, even like more independent stuff like Saga or whatever, or Walking Dead. Like the comic book films become more diverse, just like the comics did.
I think
Well,
they started out more diverse because it was really hard for like a mainstream kind of superhero to, nobody thought that they would work on the screen, so you saw, more,
Ghost World was, Ghost World, that film comes from the Clovis comic book.
Yeah, or Men in Black,
Men in Black.
and, so, to see movies go back to that, I think would be great.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just my personal opinion that I'm not going to like them as much either anymore. I'm kind of sick of it too. But that's just my personal taste.
Yeah, I saw the new one twice. I mean, I agree. I thought it was a little bloated too. I just don't care. I love them.
Well, it's good you're going to movies with your son, and that's happening. But movies and literature are two different things, right? Like literature is a vehicle where you can see characters making decisions. You're reading a book or reading a comic. There's Batman, A Secret Identity, and it's something that's in your head, and it's something just you and the page. And the value of literature is to learn about other characters making decisions and help you in your own life with your own decisions, right? And you're not going to get that from a movie. Right? It's a totally different thing. And all the most successful comics have always been, people struggling with secret identities or, double lives. Like we all, have to make these decisions in our lives. So you're never going to be as satisfied with a movie of something that you love to read.
Is the process different for working on, say, a Marvel comic as opposed to a graphic novel?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. There's many more people involved when you're doing. I do both. So when I'm writing a Marvel comic, there's 2 or 3 editors involved. There's another artist, a colorist. There's all kinds of marketing people, lawyers. There's a lot more voices involved. Whereas when I do a graphic novel, it's just me and a piece of paper, and whatever I put down goes directly to the reader. So, but there's words to the editor as
Chip
well.
says that he's writing Howard the Duck, and when he has Spider-Man say something, they got to take it over and run it by the Spider-Man desk and cross-check, make sure that that's in continuity with everything that he would say, and it seems very complicated. Yeah.
Did you read 12 Cent Archie? What Bart Beatty did about?
Yeah.
All that. The way Archies were intervened. The author of this book, he read every Archie comic from that was published in the 12th century period. Every single Archie comic, right? It's a fascinating book. One of the best books on comics I've read.
I was just wondering if you guys ever find it difficult to finish a work, because I watched an interview with the girl who did this one summer, and someone asked her what the biggest struggle was, and she said the last third of it, just because with the prep, she's like, I've drawn these characters from every angle for thousands and thousands of times in Kagan. I know like Infinite Kung Fu took a long time to finish, so by the end of it, where you're just kind of like, oh man, this isn't done yet, I still have to keep drawing this character, I want to move
It's
on to
always
something
like
else.
that, and then you miss it as soon as it's done.
Yeah.
I just finished Roughneck, that graphic novel I've been working on for 2.5 years, and the last 2 or 3 weeks, it's like torture I'm so sick of drawing their faces. And now I miss them already a week later.
Yeah, that's the advice they give to writers, is finish it, right? Who's the guy who wrote Confederacy of Dunces? That poor guy killed himself because he had this book that came after this brilliant book, but he was just like, and he felt like he couldn't finish this book. It was just like, it's getting out of control, and you gotta somehow finish like whatever it takes, like Kurt Vonnegut, big crayon charts of characters, and you've gotta somehow make it work, and like just the book I'm working on now is just like, oh yeah, I just finished writing this rough draft of it, and it's taken me like 4 years, but you know, it's like, oh, it's just luck. It's just like somebody up there is helping me or something, because I'll just like find a little piece of the puzzle, and it goes together. It's just luck.
With the Kung Fu book, I started around year 2000, and I was working digitally. Did 3 issues like that, and when I had a few more issues, I started working traditionally, because what we talked about earlier, it was just much more fun. And so then I got the contract with Top Shelf to do the graphic novel, and by the time I got, you know, halfway through, I hated the early stuff, so I redid that and like just basically traced over in ink the digital stuff to make it match. And then when I got to the end of the book, then you start kind of going like, oh, this stuff is a few years old, the beginning of the book, and I don't really like you could just keep finessing forever, and you just have to just let go.
Put stuff into the front, and put new stuff in the front. Nobody reads the notes.
I always like, because when people flip through it, and if you flip through it on the chain over there, flip through the end, because that's the last stuff I did, and I like that better than the middle and beginning, because it's older.
Any other questions?
I'd like to know about the process of like maybe the writing side. Like when somebody hands you, like, I want you to draw this for me, and they, like, what are the directions? Is it like so detailed, like you will draw a man holding a cup and he will throw the cup? Or is it just like vague guidelines and then you kind of get to write it out?
Like a play with stage directions. That's how the script kind of comes, and if it's part of the story, then they have that kind of stuff, and if hopefully they don't not describing things that aren't important to the story.